Okay, last time we tried this, nobody could hear me. Actually, nobody can hear me. Santi, when we were hosting the brew last week, nobody could hear us. So hopefully
Welcome
it
to
changes
my
here.
world.
Dude, it
There's
was
a bug.
complete karma, bro. It was complete karma, bro.
I wish I was there to hear that. Well, not hear that exactly, but yeah, I wish I was there to make fun of you. But
Bro, it was complete karma. It was.
there's a bug. When you start the stage, nobody can hear you, so you need to drop.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I did drop. I dropped. I went to my phone. My camera's not even working right now. Can anyone see me?
Mine is not working
No,
either,
sir.
and I have it connected as well.
Oh man, you guys are not blessed by the gods of Discord.
Okay,
We're
there
not.
we go. Jesus, holy moly! Said I'm ranting to. You can hear me, but I'm quiet. Let me see. Let me see. Am I better? Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Dom. Dom isn't blessed by the Discord gods. Okay, loud and clear. Okay, good now. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Am I like
that.
loud? Am I
Oh,
loud now, or?
You're fine. I mean, I always heard you at the same level and heard you
Fuck,
fine.
man.
So
Okay. Santi and Dom
Yeah.
are good. All right, Jose, they can't hear you, bro.
they can't hear you, Jose.
That's a lie, bro. Everyone can hear me.
I can't hear any of you guys.
Can anyone hear Swag?
Is Michael here?
Hello? Hello?
Dude. Oh man.
This is
Oh,
literally the
man.
best. This is the best troll. I hope we never stop it.
Yeah. Next time you start the stage, Dom, you'll see how it goes. You'll feel it.
Yeah. Can't hear
Dude, I'm
from
telling you, bro. Last week, Discord, like Jose and I had to leave the amphitheater because it just wouldn't work.
True.
It happens.
Beyond the
Sometimes
horizon,
you're
what's
just
up,
not
brother?
blessed.
JP, what's up? Hey, everybody.
Yes,
GMs.
no.
GMs.
On
GMs
record.
to everybody.
Jam.
Wagner's Kitchen Heart. Katir is saying.
Is this
That's
the
where
kitchen
the magic
reveal?
happens.
Is this the kitchen reveal right here?
No. The
Kitchen
kitchen
blocks.
reveal was on the town hall, end of your town hall.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it was, yeah.
But I do have a pretty cool apron right there.
What's the best dish you cooked in that kitchen?
Best dish I've cooked here. I made a frozen pizza the other day.
Nice.
That's
I
a way
respect that,
better
bro. I
response
respect that.
than I was expecting.
I actually made
You
a
just have to
pretty
keep moving.
good burrito the other night. Some marinated chicken. I did kind of like a fried rice style thing. A little spinach in there.
Ooh.
Ooh.
The guy's a chef.
And then kind of like a what's the oh man, I'm trying to remember what are those tacos that are like fried with cheese on both sides? Birria taco kind of
Oh
style
my
shell around it.
Yeah.
I don't know
Uh-huh.
what that is.
You're
I don't
speaking
know
my
what that
language
is.
right now, bro. No, I know. I know what you're talking about, bro. Don't worry.
Americans.
Birria is like easily the best taco ever.
Okay. Nice. So now we learned that Swagner is a chef. And he will cook for the whole Stratus community someday.
I don't know about all that. Well, I'm cooking for the community every day, dude.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right. We can get started. Welcome everyone to the Atlas Brew number 142. This brew is titled Michael Wagner's Announcement. What does that mean? We'll get on details soon. But we will be talking about Solana, the future of the Stratos infrastructure, and diving a bit deeper on what Michael announced last week when it comes to the possible future options that we have for our infrastructure and making our products work, basically. In we're not going to spoil anything yet, but I highly recommend for everyone to go to the announcements channel and read that message if you haven't, because that context is very much needed for this conversation. So we will start with the noteworthy news, but I highly recommend everyone to scroll up a little bit on the announcements channel so you know what we'll be talking about, because it's important for the conversation.
Yeah,
we
we'll
will
give
be
you
just
20 or 30 minutes to read through that announcement.
yeah. We'll buy you time here with the noteworthy news. It's important. Now, it's been a long time since I last did this, so I want to introduce my co-hosts. Dominic, man, how are you doing, man?
Yeah. Bro, I'm doing fan-freaking-tastic. I've already said this a couple times. No glaze here, no glaze. But I actually think the announcement that Michael put out, this novel length announcement, is probably one of my favorite announcements we've ever put out ever. So go read it. It's just a raw and honest conversation about kind of what's going on. I mean, we're gonna get into it right now, but it's really good to have that context. But no, I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited. We hit the ground running when we came back in 2025. A lot of stuff we're planning, a lot of stuff we're talking about. I'm just excited. I'm excited. I'm excited for everything.
It's going to be a good year for sure.
Absolutely.
And yeah, man, I can't believe we are hyping up the announcement. That's great. This is the first time we hype up an announcement that already happened.
Yeah, that's a new chair. That's a new chair.
The complete
quality.
opposite, bro.
I think it's the first time we do that. But yeah, I want to introduce also Jose. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Santi. Super excited for today's conversation as well. This is a very important topic for our project overall. And as everyone knows, being a blockchain company comes with perks and hardships, and we are never afraid of facing the hardships. So today we are going to straightforward talk about our options, discuss with the community where our vision is, and yeah, super excited to hear more on Michael's vision about this topic as well.
Yeah. We will have two guests as well for today. We'll probably get them on stage after after we go through the noteworthy news. But we'll have Brian. Brian, everybody knows him, King Brian from the community, and probably Brett as well from our team. So we'll get them on stage very soon. But before, while everybody reads the Michael Wagner announcement right now, we're going to get on the noteworthy news. And first of all, one noteworthy news is Never Alone. Never Alone, guys. Mission 3 took way too long. We can all agree with that. But it's going to be closing, and it's going to be closing in January 22nd. So next week, next brew, there will be no longer any quest available for Never Alone Mission 3. So you still can earn some XP for some of the quests that are out there in case you want to get those Mission 3 memories. So take advantage of this week in case you want to do that. And then January 22nd, we're going to close that, and you're going to have to submit your wallet to receive the memories. And from there, we'll keep moving. But yeah, Never Alone is finishing, guys. It's time. It's time to end it. But yeah, that's the first noteworthy news. The second one is that you can now create tickets again. It's back. So everybody can create a ticket and say hi to Arthur. I'm joking.
Everybody
please.
create a ticket.
Please don't do that.
Rip.
No, don't do that. But we were without the ticket system for a while we were out until we were having some issues with the platform that we use, but now they're back. So if you need any support, you know that Darwin is always there in the dungeons, checking out for you guys. So he will be taking care of you. Another big news is for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the Econ Forum. So Dom, if you can drop that link in the chat for people to mark us interested. We have the first Econ Forum of the year, and Chris and Gareth have prepared some some cool stuff to share with us, as well as the usual Q&A. So if you're playing Sage, if you're involved in the strategy economy, this is the event to participate in. 100%. You don't want to miss this one. So make sure to mark us interested right now in the chat and to join us tomorrow. Same time as the brew, but tomorrow we'll be here in the amphitheater with Chris and Gareth talking about the Star Atlas economy. So
it's in a weird day, but we'll be getting back to the first Thursday of every month starting next month, just so everyone is aware. This one's in a little bit of a weird time, but back to your regular scheduled programming in February.
Chris needed a week to sleep off his whiskey hangover. That's what he requested of me anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Just I think we're losing you, man. At least I can't see your camera.
I'll turn it off.
Do a good old closing Discord from the task manager. That worked for me today. But yeah. Another thing is that we will have the Golden Carnival on Friday, as always. I lost count. I don't know what week it is. But I think it's week 10?
11.
I don't know.
11.
11, week 11. And we're going to be voting for the next Mega Week. So if you're interested in voting for the Mega Week, make sure to join on Friday. We're going to be voting for what the prices are for the next Mega Week. And last time, I remember a lot of people saying, oh, why did you vote for this? Why did you vote for that? Why is the community doing this? Well, be there. Get your voice heard. Go vote this Friday. Very important. So yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. We also have the usual pre-game show, right, Dom?
Yep. 30 minutes before every Golden Carnival, we do some Marvel games, give away some crew packs, some ships. It's a lot of fun. Seriously. Come on down.
It is. It is. Then another thing that was launched this week was the Beyond the Horizons new video on what are Polis and Atlas and how do I get involved. So it's a cool video that he produced. Highly recommended. And yeah, just go watch it. Go give it a like. He keeps crushing it with the content every week. New content from Beyond the Horizon. So
shout out to Beyond the Horizon. Holding it down, man.
Legend.
I was just going to say that, and also a big thank you for for the Christmas video.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah,
a bunch of people together from the community.
Awesome.
Very, very heartwarming.
I don't know if did we ever.
That was pretty good.
Did we ever talk about that? No, we didn't, right? Because that was during the break. Oh man,
I don't think we did, unless you guys did in the last brew.
Yeah. Everybody go watch that one. Everybody go watch that one if you haven't already. We can't watch it together, or I would say we watch it together, but it's 15 minutes long because Beyond the Horizon is crazy, but it's amazing. Go watch it.
And
so
also,
we'll wait for you to read the announcement.
You don't want to cry again, bro?
I don't want to cry on camera, so...
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll wait for you guys to read the announcement and watch the video, and we'll spend the last 5 minutes that we have remaining on the main topic.
Yeah.
Good strategy.
Well, last thing is that the community-run and fully driven Gallia Cup is back. It's coming back. The good old Gallia Cup is coming back in February 1st. So shout out to Agent Solace and everybody who is organizing the Gallia Cup. It's going to be a racing competition. Dom just posted the link in the chat for you to join the Gallia Cup Discord server in case you want to get involved. I think it's going to be in a guild versus guild format, and they have some big prizes. So get involved, should be fun. And
I think they're giving away swag coin, bro.
Swag coin?
They have swag coin. It's part of the prizing. If anyone wants some swag coin, get racing.
I contributed a portion of my 85% of the allocation.
Oh Jesus.
Oh man, no way.
For clarity, I have nothing to do with Swagcoin. Just do want to put that out there.
Okay, that's a good disclaimer, just in case. And then another thing is that I've seen Brujo organizing a big search event, and I think they want to do it in different regions and different guilds. So if you're interested in participating in a big search event, make sure to DM Brujo. Brujo, good luck, bro. I hope you get a lot of DMs. But yeah, it should be fun. I'm just going to say Brujo has been practicing a lot. He's been testing. He's been playing every day. So don't let him host the sessions because that will be way too much. Just clarification. Oh, and Rome, that's true. I think Rome also has a search event every Sunday at 6 p.m. UTC. So you can also get involved in that. I love to see it. I love to see this. So many different groups inside the community hosting events in the game. Man, I can't wait. I can't wait for the multiplayer. Well, we have multiplayer, but the actual servers, that's going to be huge.
I'm just gonna seed it now, but I'm gonna be hosting some tournaments, search tournaments myself when private peer-to-peer hosting comes online, which should be hopefully soon. They're working on the team is working on polishing the update. So when we do have private peer-to-peer lobbies, I would love to have a guild competition surge tournament with great prizing. Yeah, so for all the guilds out there, who are interested, start getting your teams ready because we're gonna start having some fun. Esports is best ran when it's organic and it's grassroots. So I'm really excited for this this kind of stage of things.
That's how we do it, right?
Exactly, bro. Exactly.
So yeah, it's a great moment to get involved. And also shout out, I see in the chat, to Star Seekers and PG for the mobile app that they built, and they have prizes in there regularly as well. So also check that out. We need to do a community updates brew for sure. Like we need to bring those back. There's a lot of things that the community has been working on. So probably one of the upcoming brews is going to be about community stuff and things that you guys are building, so we can give them the proper exposure that you all deserve. With that said,
dude, big shout out to PG real quick because he's done some really cool things. He had the coloring book. He launched the initiatives in Sandbox, and then most recently the Star Seekers mobile app. So really cool stuff coming from him.
PG is a builder. He is a builder. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We can get on the main topic, which is, as you can see, Michael Wagner's announcement. I hope everybody read the announcement in this 15 minutes that we've been yapping here on Noteworthy News. So make sure, I'm hoping you all did. But just as a quick intro, as everybody knows, there's a lot that goes behind running Star Atlas. Even at a very early stage like we are right now, there's a lot of infrastructure technology that we have to run, from RPC nodes, Starcom, Solana itself, and way more things that are well outside my knowledge, of course. And doing that comes with big challenges, of course. And we want to keep building on-chain gaming. We truly believe in on-chain gaming. But that comes with these challenges. So sometimes we face some Solana instability. Sometimes the fees go really high in Solana, affecting the profitability for all the players that are inside Sage. And it's kind of a good problem to have, because that means that we picked the right chain, right? When we joined Solana, I think, Michael, the decision was made in even 2020. I don't want to assume, but the decision to build in Solana was done insanely early. So Solana was not even launched, or just launched like a couple months ago. And when you guys made that decision, it was a bet, right? But that means that we bet on the right chain at the same time, because Solana has managed to acquire a massive amount of users and a big ecosystem, but that at the same time affects our on-chain gaming, because since there's so much going on in the ecosystem, the chain sometimes gets congested, the fees go higher, transactions don't go through. So that's what we're going to cover in this brew. So how is Stratos looking into this? What are the possible solutions, the fixes, the options that we have moving forward to keep doing on-chain gaming, to make Sage better, to make Star Atlas products better, Marketplace better, and just strategically what's the best option for Star Atlas. And as Don pointed out, the announcement that Michael did was very open and honest. Like, these are the problems that we're facing. These are the solutions that we can think of. There is no silver bullet here, and we're open to discussing this with the community, not only in the announcement, but also diving deeper here at the brew. So I think that paints the picture on what we're going to be chatting about today. I don't know, Michael, if you want to add some extra context here.
No, I think it was a great introduction. To be perfectly clear, and I made this statement in the announcement as well, but we have zero intention of moving away from fully on-chain gaming. I think there are enormous benefits that can be extracted by executing the architecture in the way that we've designed it now, whether that's on Solana, on some alternative network, on our own bootstrapped network. But there are a couple of core principles in crypto that have really been embedded in me over the last greater than a decade now in the space, and they're kind of buzzwords that get thrown around a lot, but things like permissionless systems and of course decentralization and censorship resistance, these things are all absolutely critical from my perspective. And I also I think you all know we have really a big and ambitious vision for Star Atlas that extends beyond gaming. And I know that is the focal point, that is the centerpiece, it is where we're spending all of our time and resources right now. But I do think long-term perspective about the idea of creating, what we've called a cyber nation. It's kind of an extension of the metaverse, but this idea that you can never faded. But this idea that we have a global borderless digital community, digital society, and functional and sustainable economy. I think we would be naive to assume that there's no potential for that to face sovereign state challenges and risks. And I don't want to go too far down this path right now. I want to focus on the announcement, but to whatever extent you become competitive with nation states in the way that people participate in an economy, you want that system to be fully decentralized, so there's no central point of compromise or failure or attack. And so what that implies is I do not want Automata to be at the center of that. I want Automata to be a contributor, developer, builder of the gaming environment and of the features, and but largely I want us to be a contributor to this broader idea of a cyber nation, and not necessarily just pseudo running blockchain in the background, which we've seen a lot of Web3 game studios do. So I think there's a lot to consider, and it is incredibly important that that we achieve those goals of censorship resistance as we build into the future.
Absolutely. It's our ethos, right? To be decentralized, to add to this decentralized future, and build the cyber nation that we want Star Atlas to be, right? So, yeah, we will always keep that in mind. And that said, we now have on stage Brian and Brett. Brian is going to provide to the conversation the perspective from a Solana validator in general. So Brian, welcome to the stage.
Welcome,
Thanks
brother.
for having me. Thank you. And just
Pleasure.
if I can give a little background on my validating experience, some people may not know, but I've been a Solana validator since 2022, and then I operated Cogent Crypto, which at the highest we had $400 million in SOL under our responsibility. And I just recently left Cogent Crypto. I helped lead them to an 18 million exit, which is pretty exciting. And after that, I founded Titan Analytics. So that's my own validator. It's running on Solana mainnet. And we're about $40 million. So So I've got a lot of experience running mainnet. I was also running SUI as well for Cogent. So I've been on SUI, and part of the journey of the last 3 years as a mainnet validator is exploring. I probably had over 50 dedicated servers across 10 different data centers across multiple geographic locations, running testnet, running devnet, running FireDancer, running non-FireDancer. So I've got a lot of experience on Solana, and happy to share those experiences with everyone.
I appreciate your knowledge sharing here, Brian, and your perspective as well.
Welcome,
Happy
brother.
to have you on stage. And we also have Brett, our VP of Engineering at Star Atlas. So if any context is needed, any extra details, or anything really technical, we have the man himself here on stage. So
Holy
You
cow,
know-
it'll be fine.
that's the attitude that the community wants. Nice. So yeah, I think we can get started here. So as we prefaced, we have been facing some issues when it comes to infrastructure, reliability of Solana, volatility when it comes to fees, transactions not going through. But this affects two main things. One is the transaction settlement reliability. So are the actions they are taking in game, are they hitting the chain? Are they reflecting in? And then the other thing is the transaction fee impact. So how much do you actually have to pay for those transactions to go through? That really affects the experience. If you have been playing Sage, sometimes you see that the transaction doesn't go through, or maybe it did, but it doesn't reflect in the game, or vice versa. So it affects overall the game. So I just wanted to cover first, maybe a bit more in detail, maybe Brett or Michael, like how do these two things currently affect Star Atlas besides what I just mentioned, and what do they mean also if I missed any context?
Brett, I'll take the initial point here, and then if you'd like to add some additional context, I think that would be helpful. But I do want to preface this with probably three statements. One, it was a bit premature to make that announcement that I made. It wasn't really our intention. Now, back in December when we hosted the town hall, I did already note that we have two addendums that feed into tokenomics. One of them as the Atlas Locker addendum and some adjustments and benefits we're adding there. The other was related to Polis and Appolo. We've been thinking about this for some time, probably at least with respect to Appolo, I would say greater than a year. The Atlas Locker addendum is something that we've been discussing for a few months now. It was premature to post the announcement. However, I felt there was some urgency in at least addressing community concerns because I'm constantly interfacing with the community team here. They're sharing feedback and concerns from the community, and it was kind of particularly amplified last week given the network congestion, and so I wanted to post something. We were not able to fully articulate all of the plans behind these addendums, these papers, and our plans with Appolo specifically, which is why I'm here on this call. And we do have some papers coming out subsequently. So one is it was a little premature. We've got more information coming to you guys. Two is this is not a confirmation that we are moving Star Atlas to Appolo. That is one potential solution that we have to some of the issues that users are facing right now. It's very conceivable that there are some improvements to Solana, even over the course of this year, that lead to better performance, lower costs for our users, and we're able to stay on Solana mainnet. In full transparency, that would actually be my preference. Now, there are some benefits that we can get into about Appolo, specifically with respect to things like how do we distribute revenue out of the DAO to people that are stakeholders in a fully legal and compliant fashion. That's a challenge, and again, I'll get more into that later. But There is no guarantee. It's not a confirmation we're moving to Appolo. I was simply outlining that is one potential avenue that we have to help resolve some of the existing issues. And then getting into your question, Santi, the one is transaction reliability. What I did not mention, and I probably should have emphasized in my comment in my announcement, was the team has been doing a tremendous amount of infrastructure work to improve transaction settlement reliability. There are still improvements to be made, but I'm quite satisfied with the strides that we've made that make it feasible for every transaction to land with high reliability. Reliability means you click, mine a resource, and it goes through and it starts mining. Or any action in the game. You're moving, you're moving around cargo. When we have combat, obviously this is going to be essential that when you engage in combat, your ship or your fleet actually starts attacking, right? The last thing you want is to lose an engagement or a battle because a transaction failed. Now, Brett could also, Brett on the call could also talk about the way that we're envisioning this first version of Atomic Combat, where there's an auto respond function. So if somebody attacks you, your fleet does actually start attacking back, whether you confirm a transaction or not. However, this becomes extremely relevant. I think, and I do have confidence that the team would be able to resolve the reliability issue, especially over the course of the. What's out of our control and what's a bigger concern is how much does it cost to send those transactions? And it's kind of unbelievable to me that we're actually having this conversation, because part of the value proposition of Solana from inception, and anybody who watched my interviews in the early days, I was always talking about sub-second finality, high transaction throughput, and less than 1 penny transaction costs. And the fact that we're seeing now with a kind of a priority fee architecture, transaction fees on Solana go to maybe 10 cents, which is still incredibly cheap, was unanticipated, at least by me. And so for the average user on Solana, this may be processing a few trades or interacting with some marketplaces or interacting with other projects. They might be processing 2 to 5 transactions a day. If you're paying, a penny to 10 cents, well, no big deal. You just spent 50 cents at most on the day. For our users that are processing hundreds or thousands of transactions per day, that becomes extremely impactful. And in particular, when you consider that against the capability of those assets to produce value through resource capture and our current game design, it again is imperative that we consider future cost implications and how our game operates, so that we can engage with users of every size, so that you can get into the game with, $20, $50, $100 worth of assets and still be able to play, have fun, most importantly, and maybe you don't care about the transaction costs from that perspective. But if you want to be able to get into the game and go from zero to hero, which is a kind of a narrative and a story we would like to create, is that you can get into the game, earn off of your assets, continue to compound your earnings into more assets, and grow over time and become a powerhouse in Star Atlas. Well, we have to make sure that you can at least play profitably, from the sense that the network transaction cost, the underlying technology, is not preventing you from doing that. Now, maybe you have a bad strategy and you're not making money because of that. Well, that's on you as a player. But if the tech puts you at a significant disadvantage from the start, well, that's a problem that needs to be solved. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of covers all of it high level. Brett, if you have anything you want to add there, please feel free.
Just one thing is on the reliability side too. Solana does have effectively these waves of whether or not they're actually coming through or not, trending on the uptrend. That's part of why we're having this discussion, is that the priority fees are trending up quite a bit and over a long period of time. And the reliability of transactions going through has also been going down over time. Like right now, I think the transactions are actually going pretty well. It also because it changes, it's hard to tell if our changes did something or just happened to be Solana change. Like we did a change a while back in December that we thought broke everything, but then we reverted the change, and it turns out Solana was just broken, and everybody's transaction was down to like 30% reliability, which is crazy bad. Mm-hmm. So just a few things there. It's not the easiest thing to fix reliability. We're working on it. We can probably fix it, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, and then you get a Penguin Con airdrop that just congests the whole chain as well.
On the plus side, and yeah, Brett, I think it's a great point. You know, my statement assumes that Solana stability is going to continuously improve over time as well. I think that's probably a fair assumption. But at least in the current meta and the current era, we're not seeing Solana go down for a day or two when we have high network activity. So that's a considerable improvement. Everything else about the statement was and continues to be true.
Yeah, but Solana also at the same time is doing some things to fix this, and maybe Brian, you can add some details here. And guys, just to warn everyone here, we may get a little bit technical in the conversation, but the idea here is for everybody to understand the issues that we're facing as a community and as a project, and the challenges, right? So it's a good moment also to learn from people who are exposed to this on a daily basis. So I don't know, Brian, if you have any comments on, like, from a validator perspective, what is happening in Solana, like what are the bottlenecks that the chain is facing, and what they're kind of doing to fix it. I know it's a big question, 3 big questions, but any extra context would probably help.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting as a validator when congestion starts happening. We don't actually notice because from our perspective, everything is business as usual. Priority fees go up, but we don't really see it. What we hear about it is from customers or from infrastructure operators. Like validators are just like the chain is running, we're happy. So it's from our perspective, if the chain's running, it's great. So, but I think what I want to mention here is we have the validators and you have the chain that's running, but then you have RPCs, right? And that is, I would say RPCs are probably the heart of Solana, really. And there's so many companies and protocols that are building that on RPCs, because RPCs are the gateways to the blockchain. In order to access information on Solana, you have to go through an RPC. But that's really challenging because RPCs are actually validator machines that don't vote. And they are actually higher hardware requirements than a normal validator. And so for a company to put together an RPC, like you might need 10 RPCs to service one customer. So it's a lot of money, it's a lot of infrastructure. And what Solana is doing and what the RPC providers are doing, they're actually building RPC 2.0, they're calling it. And that's going to break away the RPC infrastructure away from the Solana validator, which means hopefully, instead of an RPC machine being $1,000, it's going to be $500. And then we can have a lot more of those. So I would say that's the biggest change coming to RPCs. And that's actually been in the works for probably a good year now. So hopefully in the next 6 months that comes out. On the validator side, we're currently pushing 2.1. So right now Solana's on version 2.0. And 2.1 is going to bring a lot of great changes. And in order for 2.1 to come out, we actually run through tests on testnet. So testnet is always running a version ahead of mainnet. Mainnet's on 2.0, testnet's on 2.1. So what we did just 2 days ago was we dropped testnet down to 2.0, and so we bring it, we crash the network, and then we restart it back to 2.1. That's so in case there's something happens on mainnet, we go from mainnet 2.1. If there's a crash, so we know that we can bring it back up or revert back to 2.0. So that's happening right now on testnet, which means mainnet is going to be upgraded in about 2 weeks. So after mainnet is upgraded, there is core Solana changes, but there's things called feature gates, which are incremental, I would say, features that they activate over time, let's say once every 2 weeks. So we'll get core changes on version 2.1 in about 2 weeks, and then future gates will slowly roll out over the next couple months. So that's going to be soon. And I also want to point out we've had congestion issues maybe 3 times over the last year and a half, and they generally clear up. Like we had that time when nothing was working, far more than than was happening now. We couldn't even pay. We wanted to pay higher priority fees. And that cleared up. That had to do with the scheduler, and Solana fixed that. So that's 2.1. And then I just want to talk about Frankendancer a little bit. So Frankendancer is the new software that's being created by Jump. The software running right now is called Agave. So Franken Dancer, it's Fire Dancer plus Agave. It's everything but the consensus. Consensus is voting. So validators vote on a transaction to whether it's valid or not. That's the most complicated part of Solana, and no one really wants. And they're very careful when they mess with that. So Franken Dancer is basically the networking layer. And just last week, we had 30% of testnet on Franken Dancer. And after this restart that we're doing on testnet, we're going to push to 90% Franken Dancer on testnet. And this is a pretty big deal because, as I said earlier, when things are tested to that extreme on testnet, that means we're getting ready for a push to mainnet. So Franken Dancer is a lot closer than people think, and there actually is nodes running on mainnet as well, just not as many because we don't want to. So one of the big goals huge goal of mainnet is it has to be stable, right? So we're slowly rolling out Franken Dancer to mainnet, and it's going to be, I think in the next 6 months we're going to start seeing a lot more validators running Franken Dancer, and then Fire Dancer is Franken Dancer plus consensus, and that will be the huge change. So something that happened with Franken Dancer from the Jump team, what they realized is they're having a lot of slowdowns on the networking layer. So I don't know if you guys have heard the announcement on this, but Austin Federa, he worked for Solana Labs. He formed a company called 00 with part of the Jump Crypto team, and they're building a layer 0 blockchain, which is at the networking layer. And guess who's going to be connecting to that first? Solana is going to be connected to that first. So we could see that becoming in the next year as well, which is super exciting. And then I think a short-term change is coming out is they're increasing compute units to 50 million. So everyone's been saying, hey, can we increase CUs to 100 million? But that could destabilize the network. So a compute unit is how much processing power a transaction takes, and then the validators will pack those into a block. A block can hold 48 million compute units. So if we're going to double that to 100 million, then that's twice as many transactions. Just imagine you can get twice as many compute units in that block. It would be huge. So we're starting small. We're going 5%, so up to 50 million CUs, which is a pretty big deal. And then we'll see how that plays out. And then we could, I would not be surprised if we hit 75 million in the next 6 months to a year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things happening, and these Solana guys, they're some of the smartest guys in crypto. So I'm confident that we're going to keep churning, we're going to keep moving forward. But as I mentioned before, and you mentioned Santi, we could keep moving forward, and then people love Solana. So even though all this stuff is happening, there's also no guarantee that the speed will keep up with the need, really.
Exactly.
Hey,
Yeah.
Brian, can you this was part of the discussion that we had internally. I'm hoping maybe you can add some color to this, but there are concerns that with forthcoming network improvements, there is a reduction in validator requirements. And instead of seeing validators maintain the level of hardware that they have to currently operate the network, they actually reduce their hardware to satisfy the minimum threshold, therefore reducing their cost and resulting in little or no improvement to network performance itself. Is there any thoughts on that, I guess? Yeah.
So actually, the opposite has been happening. So mainnet so we just launched a feature gate called TVC, which is timely vote credits. Before this was launched, I think it's been about 2 months now. Before this was launched, you just voted, and if your vote landed, you got credits. And credits are important because that's how you get rewarded as a validator. There's inflation rewards, and then they get sent out to your credits times your stake weight. So with timely vote credits, the feature gate, credits are now based on latency. So how fast you vote. And one of the number one factors in how fast you vote is how fast your machine is. So you can't get away with running a potato node anymore. And so we've seen everyone has been shifting their nodes to higher requirements because one of the main drivers for these smaller nodes are stake pools. And stake pools are ranked. So in order to have the best ranking, you need better machines. So we've been seeing that go up quite a lot, actually, and I think it's going to keep going up as people maintain competitiveness. Now, where it can get a bit, some of the places like Coinbase that have 10 million stake, or Binance, or Figment, they're a bit slower to upgrade their hardware. So there's a bit of lag on there, but definitely I would say we're going up. And then we also thought FireDancer was going to reduce requirements, but actually it's increasing requirements because of the way that the architecture is. They need a lot of cores, and they're pushing for 1 million TPS. So I actually thought the same. I thought that hardware requirements would halve, but it's going up. It's going up a lot.
Well, not surprisingly, aligning economic incentives with better performance has a lot of merit. So I think that's a net positive. And again, just going back to my original comment, let's see how Solana progresses over the course of this year.
Yeah, and one of the things that everybody's excited about, and if you're in Solana, you have heard of it, and Brian, you kind of touched on it, is FireDancer. And I'm curious, I don't know, maybe Brett, if you want to take this one, but how could something like FireDancer help the Star Atlas performance in our products overall? You're muted.
Yep. I think actually Brian would be more of an expert on this. He's way more familiar with the validator stuff.
It's so just talk about the compute units, right? That's an easy fix. If people weren't running poor, like as Swagner mentioned, that there are people running poor setups and slow computers. If we had confidence that everyone was running so if everyone was running the same machines I was running right now, we could flip that compute units right now. We could double it, and I think the chain would be fine. And suddenly we have double our capacity. So that's something that FireDancer is going to do. It's going to enable us to run double compute units, or get rid of certain bottlenecks. Like let's say at the networking layer, at the scheduler layer, right? Rewriting all this just eliminates all the different bottlenecks. But also, the way that FireDancer is built is you can assign cores to each part of the validator process. So if something is taking up more compute power, you can just add a new core. So let's say the scheduler, so like a Pingu airdrop, suddenly we have, everyone is minting, and we're getting too many transactions. Well, we could, and let's say we had 2 cores pinned to that, we could move to 4 cores, and suddenly, we're doing great. Where Agave is limited, it doesn't have that capabilities. So FireDancer will help us, pretty much in all aspects. But and I will say one of the things that we're waiting on for FireDancer is, I'm sure you guys all know about Jito. Jito processes a transaction through bundles. People can they can use Jito to send transactions that are outside of the priority fee market. And there are economic incentives. If a validator runs Jito, you could get tips from them. That's not on FireDancer yet. So we need to get Jito on FireDancer in order to have economic incentive to run FireDancer, and that's going to be coming out in the next 2 to 3 months as well. So there's so many things that are cooking that are leading us towards faster machines, better versioning. And I'm actually personally running something called Paladin now. Paladin is it's a new company that came. They're part of Bloxroute. It's kind of showed up out of nowhere in the last 6 months. I think maybe they came from Ethereum. But they created a patch on top of Jito. They call it P3. It's the Paladin Priority Port. It's a specific port on top of the validator software that someone who wants to do, let's say, a huge transaction. They want to do a $50 million trade. They can pay $5, basically get to the front of the line. They go into that port, and so they go to the front line. So now we have these guys that are building on Solana, trying to speed up the processes. And also part of their software is they are attacking sandwiching from the validator side. So they can identify sandwiching and they can drop it. So you can have sandwiching from the validator side or from the application side. Well, it turns out applications and users are very bad at not sandwiching. So that's another improvement. There's so many things happening. So I got a little tangent, but hopefully that answered your question on Firenancer.
Yeah, I think you covered it totally. Yeah.
I know we want to focus on the announcement, but I think this is a very relevant topic of the discussion. Brian, just to extrapolate a bit on the compute unit improvement, translate that to the end user. In theory, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but in theory, an increase in the compute units and transaction throughput means there's less requirement to add a priority fee because now the network is faster, more transactions are going through, and so you don't have to pay a priority fee because you're still getting included in a block. That's the idea, right?
I think it's exponential too. Maybe Brett can talk about this, but like as soon as the priorities start going, people start bidding. So even if we have a 10% increase in CUs, it could result in a way bigger reduction in priority fees.
Yeah, there's a possibility there where it goes, because basically we're talking about the cap on a block, which is how much capacity can we shove through one block on Solana, and a block is at a specific rate. So when that increases, it increases the amount of transactions that we can shove into a block, and increases the by having more capacity, you've got more supply, same demand, price goes down.
And Brett, one more thing on this actually, because there was some conversation on our internal Discord about optimizing priority fees surrounding compute units. I could also be getting that wrong. It's a bit beyond me, but
so the way priority fees are done is that you pay a certain amount of priority fee per compute unit, and that's the prioritization function. Is not on it's on how much are you paying per compute unit, because the size of a block is basically how many compute units. So the more you're willing to pay for that space, however much space you take, that's the determination, and that's the priority key there. So there's been some talk about optimizing whether we do like reduce the amount per transaction, maybe that gets in sooner. We're still doing a lot of testing on that. That has to do with like all of our reliability stuff that we've been talking about. The optimal path is for, hey, like large transactions, we shove as much as we can to reduce the base fee. But right now the priority fee is even like outstripping the base fee by quite a bit. So it's that discussion starts coming up where maybe we split this into multiple transactions. Basically take something that's 200 compute down to 100 and 100. You pay the same priority fee because priority fee is per compute unit, but you do pay an extra base fee but the base fee is so much smaller, maybe it's worth it because it gets in sooner.
That's so you're doing two transactions instead of one, but lower priority fee, so the math backs out that it's actually less expensive.
It would be more expensive, but it may be more likely to get in because you pay the base fee twice, but you pay the same priority fee because priority fee is per compute unit. And if you split them into two, you're doing the same amount of compute, just in two different transactions.
And part of the discussion was also to use like a very generic metaphor here. It's like if there's a freighter ship, on the ocean, freight liner that is moving cargo, and you have a 40-foot cargo unit that maybe they don't have room for on the ship, or you have 4 10-foot cargo units that they can fit 2 of them on, and maybe 2 of them not, right? So by reducing the compute units per transaction, we have better chances of getting included in the next block.
That's the theory. We're still testing that out to see if that's actually how it's functioning. But yeah.
Cool. Funcracker, we don't need your snarky remarks, okay?
Man. But there's still one big topic to cover, which includes a couple other topics. I think we can, if everybody's okay here, we can extend a little bit, stay a bit longer. But we wanted to talk also about the possible future scenarios for these issues and how to work around them or work with them or avoid them. And there are a couple future scenarios. First one, of course, is what we were just discussing. You guys heard the discussion. What happens if we stay in native Solana? Well, all the things that Brian was mentioning are the fixes that are coming to Solana. And from what Michael said in the beginning, that's the best option for us, of course. Like Solana fixes all the issues, we stay in native Solana, and we just keep moving, right? Am I correct at saying this, Michael? I just don't want to put words in your mouth here.
Well, largely, yes. There are some other economic advantages that we could derive by some implementation of Apollo. For the ecosystem, by the way. This would include tokenomic enhancements, more utility and value driven to Polis. That's separate from the Atlas Locker benefits, as well as better retention of value within the Star Atlas ecosystem itself. You know, when we're analyzing the total fees paid by our users and it's reaching $100,000 per month, well, that's $100,000 that's going to network security on a third party that we're relying on. Now, that third party is a decentralized network, and we derive a lot of value from that. And it's a worthy cost. It's arguably inexpensive, but it's borne by every single one of our users. And I think, you know, one of the topics that's come up is I don't think this is entirely true, but the statement is essentially that it's disproportionately borne by the smaller players because they're paying the same fee as a whale, right? Whether you have a fleet that's maxed out with commander ships or you have a single extra small ship, you pay the same network transaction fee. There's nothing we can do about that. And so on a proportional basis of the percent of your earnings potential, it's higher for the smaller players. So that's, you know, that's kind of a difficult challenge to overcome. And again, there's not too much we can do about that, although part of this Atlas Locker addendum is going to include a proposal for a fee subsidy that is then paid by the DAO on behalf of users, and it's going to be contingent on the tier of the locker of the Atlas Locker that you've reached. The cost is still being paid though, and it's just a question of, does the end user pay it, does the DAO pay it, or do we eliminate that fee entirely and retain those economic benefits within the Star Atlas ecosystem? So there are other considerations here outside of network performance, but we've always talked about composability and extensibility, or at least I have, as one of the core benefits of building directly on Solana. And when you have access to, I don't know what they're at now, 5,000 developers that are building projects or doing things on Solana, well, that is an extremely valuable resource for us to tap into, because to the extent that we can intrigue them and interest them in building some extension or feature add-on to Star Atlas, well, that's more features for all of the users that we at Automata didn't have to build. You don't have to rely on us to build everything, right? And that's really the whole core ethos of this decentralized model in the first place, is we want the Star Atlas to be co-created and co-developed. And while we're at the center of building the gaming content, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on in crypto that other teams can build. So there are other considerations, but yes, staying on Solana mainnet, I do think would probably be the optimal outcome. But I think we should at least consider what other advantages there are to leveraging Apollo to at least some extent, if not entirely. And it could very well be a hybrid solution that we move forward with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's one. Yeah, Brett, go for it.
I also want to be clear too, like the best solution being native Solana. There's also the risk that these things don't work out, that Brian was talking about. These are future developments, right? So we always have to account for that risk. And if we're caught with our pants down on, hey, we never planned for these things to not work out, and then they don't work out, it's a pretty bad situation for us.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah. Personally, from my position, I'm super happy that this is being mentioned to the community as well, because you guys right now are getting a little bit of behind the curtains access into what is the team thinking about options, right? Like, what are the options that the team is considering if things don't go that well in Solana or infrastructure-wise overall? Like, what are the routes that we can take? And that's what we were covering, right? So one is staying in Solana. The second option could be Appolo. So as Michael was pointing out, there's some big benefits, but there's also negatives there, like losing a little bit of the composability or the developers that Solana has managed to attract, which is pretty huge. But there are also big positives, right? And also another thing is that we kind of been using Appolo already as our testnet, right? Internally. And that's one thing that I don't think we mentioned yet.
Yeah, I did have a review with our team, some people from the team this morning, actually, before this. One update I do want to share, I think this is particularly relevant. There were a number of comments in Discord about the cost of running a validator on Appolo. And now this is not necessarily accurate for all time of what the assumed cost would be. Brian, you actually kind of nailed the budget estimate at $200 per server in and around. We were spending about $5,500 a month to maintain Appolo using GCP, that's Google Cloud Platform, that's a cloud service provider. Lucas on our team has done some re-architecting of that, and we're now spending between $500 and $1,000 a month to run 6 validator nodes and 1 RPC node. So essentially 7 servers for $1,000 a month is what our operating cost is right now. We as a team, like regardless of if we ever move forward with a public launch of Appolo, we will continue to employ Appolo internally because it's a great resource for us to test programs before they go to mainnet. And there's also big potential for us to leverage Appolo just as a free-to-play access point with no cost requirement to buy assets. Like I see this as just user onboarding and a user acquisition funnel. Come play on Appolo. If you like the game experience, then and you decide you're interested in the financial incentives or economic incentives of being on mainnet, we'll buy some ships and start playing there. But at least you have an opportunity to experiment with the game before you spend thousands of dollars on game assets.
Mm-hmm. Another question that I see in the chat is, if Appolo happens, is that an L2? Is that an L1? How is that seen? I don't know if we can even cover that now. But
so to kind of preface that too, the difference between an L1 and L2 is relatively small if you're doing like a very basic L2 that just kind of pushes its state back onto the chain. That could be classed as a L2. There's quite a few chains that call themselves L2s that are just literally, hey, we take our state hash and we put it onto Ethereum every now and then, and we have a bridge. Like those, that would meet the requirements of an L2, and then you can go further or whatever you want to go from there. There's a lot of options here. The Appolo is based on Solana's code base, so there is some benefits here of staying in L2, staying within the Solana ecosystem, saying, hey, we aren't like just trying to compete with Solana, we are actually adding to Solana by being an L2, adding on to its capabilities, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But you are isolating all of that activity onto what is largely a highly centralized solution, which is why you're able to get better performance and that state hash transaction. Like that's something that we could very easily do with Appolo. We talked about including that as a feature to kind of maintain the relationship with Solana. That would be a minimum level of integration or continuous integration with Solana. If I go back to my original comment, we do need to truly achieve a fully decentralized, censorship-resistant network in the future, and to whatever extent we're relying on centralized solutions, it compromises the long-term prospects of that. And in fairness, Appolo would be highly centralized at the start, but we would have some level of control and autonomy over the path to decentralization with it.
Decentralization is a spectrum of, as long as you don't siphon off the possibility and like make the servers authoritative and you have to trust the servers, you can always then expand out, add more people on, allow more validators on, allow get people involved that want to get paid for their efforts on contributing to the chain and the security of the chain and the decentralization of the chain. You want it to be where one entity can't be taken down. Like if Automata was running more than a third of the nodes, then if Automata goes away, suddenly the whole network crashes because that's Solana's threshold is 2/3 of nodes need to be active, right? Or 2/3 of stake, really. So.
Yeah. That's very interesting, and I hope everybody was taking notes there because a lot was shared when it comes to Appolo. But there are other solutions, maybe not that popular, that could also be possible, like other L2s like Magic Block or Sonic or similar ones. But I don't know, Michael, if you want to comment on that. Like, does it really have a lot of positives? Do they outweigh the negatives that it will take? So, I don't know, Michael, Brett, whoever wants to cover.
Yeah, I think Brett can probably cover it in better detail. All I will say is that I think those teams are building some really creative projects. I just don't know that they're completely philosophically aligned with our long-term objectives at Star Atlas. So it would even be possible for us to possibly leverage one of these L2 SVM solutions in the short term while we resolve some of the other issues and also figure out a longer term plan. The downside to doing that, and what we're always assessing internally, is cost benefit. If we're going to put energy into building something, generally speaking, we don't want it to be something that we know is going to be deprecated in the future, because we've just invested resources in development, and then we're just going to trash it later. So what we would prefer to invest our time and resources in is to something that has longer term sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Magic Block and Sonic are two good examples. There's a few other L2s as well. They're L2s. They all have different trade-offs. Usually they're not just straight up another blockchain on top. That's kind of what Apollo really is like take the same Solana code base. It's literally running just another Solana cluster like DevNet, but would be not airdrops and all that, zero fees. That's that kind of idea, as Michael posted in his announcement. Like the Magic Block, their goal is the very high frequency, or really low latency. They basically took a validator, cut out all the consensus bits, and then it still runs your Solana code, but in like 8 millisecond response times, that sort of thing. Like you can confirm a transaction in 8 milliseconds, which is it's good for that case, but it's also difficult to decentralize. They're working on that now. Sonic, I think, is still very early. They don't have a mainnet as far as I've seen. And they're doing a lot more than what we really need. They're doing a lot of things around like having multiple clusters and clusters talking to each other. It may be more than what we need, but it could also be an option there. But there's a few others as well. It's all trade-offs. The big trade-off I see is also we don't really control our destiny at that point, right? Like, so if something goes wrong in the code base and we aren't the ones actually maintaining it, writing it, it's a lot harder for us because we have to reach out then to a third party. That happens in all of software. There's
you end up having the problem we have right now.
Yeah, where it's we have very little control over a lot of the fees, a lot of the requirements right now. There's a philosophy in software of like build the things that are core to your business and everything else can be third party. So there's that philosophy also playing out here.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, I think we covered a lot here. We're well over the hour.
I've got two things, Santi.
Michael,
just really quickly.
I'll let you continue, Michael. Don't worry, man.
No, just to wrap, and I think give me 3 to 5 minutes here. But one of those is the other consideration of an alternative L1, and we've continuously conducted R&D on other L1s. Have had conversations with Aptos and Sui, not really looking at any EVM. There's kind of marketability, there's funding, there's grants, there's kind of co-promotional aspects to working with another L1, but why would we want to abandon the chain that has proven itself to be arguably the most successful L1, like next generation L1 out there? We lose a lot. And I'll make somewhat of a controversial statement, and I think it would be great to see a little bit more support from the Solana Foundation for Star Atlas, but there's a ton of stuff going on Solana. They can't possibly promote and market everyone, and we shouldn't necessarily expect that. So we still have a fantastic relationship with the Solana team, whether that's on the Agave side or on the Foundation side. So we wouldn't necessarily want to abandon Solana for short-term grant financial gain. More importantly, redevelopment and redeployment of all of our architecture and programs on another L1 would set us back years. We've been building all of these programs now, obviously, since 2021. And so that is not really a viable alternative. There's an alternative to set up maybe satellite multi-chain Star Atlas game features, but not necessarily redeploying Sage on an entirely different L1. So I wanted to get that one out there. And then finally, just in terms of going back to the economics of Appolo, there's really two things here. There's one, revenue opportunities for Automata, which ultimately translates to new revenue opportunities for the DAO itself. And maybe let me elaborate on that first. So the concept of selling nodes is quite a popular one in crypto. We've seen a lot of projects do that. A lot of them are superficially decentralizing whatever the application is. And so we don't necessarily want to do that. Appolo is different. Appolo would be a true intended decentralized L1 network over time. However, it would be conceivable for us to sell some license to be a participant in as a validator, at least at inception, and that would generate revenue for us. That would generate funding for Automata, which then helps us have better certainty about full development of the game. This would also be coupled with the Polis locking requirement, which means now we're driving utility again to Polis. How does that translate to revenue to the DAO? Without sharing any specific numbers, and there's no guarantees that this is the path we would take, but in theory, at some point, we reach a sufficient level of funding at Automata where we have full certainty that the entire game development is completely funded. At that point, we could make the decision to rotate revenue streams from new asset sales into the DAO. Right now, we rely on token sales, on marketplace fees, really those two things, token sales and marketplace fees, and asset sales as a way of funding and bootstrapping our business. If we are fully capitalized and we have a healthy war chest, we can make the decision that all new asset sale revenue goes directly into the DAO. So now the DAO is not relying on its own share of marketplace fees and gameplay taxation, but it has a revenue stream from asset sales, which could go a long way in creating a substantial amount of revenue for the DAO itself. So that's one part. And then the second part is regulatory compliance with revenue distribution. And there's no clear guidelines or framework for this right now. Maybe we see one emerge over the years to follow, but it's quite difficult to legally say, if you're a Polis stakeholder, you have Polis locked, the DAO is generating revenue, you're going to get a share of that revenue, because that has every appearance of being a security. And the one thing that we certainly want to avoid with respect to both tokens is attracting any regulatory scrutiny about whether or not those tokens are securities. We do not think they are, and we do not want to treat them as such. And so we have to make sure we're not taking actions that give the appearance that they are securities, which means no dividend distributions. However, with a Polis locker requirement and the license, the validator is now providing a service to the Star Atlas DAO. It is providing decentralization as a service to the DAO. It is completely reasonable for the DAO to say, we are going to compensate you for providing that service. And it takes a portion of its revenue and it distributes that out to the validators. And then how that translates down to the end user, to you all that have Polis, is we could follow a similar function to the way that Solana works, which is stake weight. And so you as an end user would be delegating your Polis stake to one of the validators, and then that validator can make a decision about how to compensate you for providing the stake weight to them. So there is a potential avenue here where revenue distribution ultimately does get distributed down to Polis stakers, but it's done so through this decentralization as a service. So very early topic to discuss. I wanted to at least just outline that. This again goes into the total consideration of which path do we take moving forward to optimize the value for the Star Atlas ecosystem.
Now that was huge. Yeah. That's a lot of information. I'm sure people are out there with the notepads. And we'll do you see Brian right there? And I bet this is probably tomorrow on an API newsletter, something like that as well, no doubt. But yeah, Michael, really appreciate all the context, and I just want to emphasize again, like for the community, you guys are really getting a lot of insight into the decision making and where our founders' heads are and how we see things from the Automata team and what the future options are. So I just want to emphasize on that. It's definitely not normal. But I really appreciate you, Michael, for coming here and sharing everything. Brett, you too, and Brian, as always, appreciate your knowledge and sharing everything you know about the Solana chain and the validator experience. It really made for a great conversation, and I'm sure everyone here learned a lot. At least I did. So I really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. Fantastic conversation.
Thanks for having me. And I'm
Yeah, I
always
just want to
free-
echo.
Oh, sorry. I'm always free to answer questions if you guys have questions, either DAO chat or FR. General chat, just tag me.
You might catch some heat in DAO chat, but he's still there to answer the questions. No, I want to echo the sentiment, Brian. Really appreciate you joining us today. Great information you shared, Brett. As always, thanks for jumping on and providing some additional context, both internally and external thoughts. Just want to reiterate here, we are pioneers in a new Wild West, navigating the unknown. So there's a lot to discover and a lot of problems to solve. But hey, we're here 4 years later. In fact, I think we just I think yesterday was our 4-year anniversary of official release of the white paper and launch of the website. So here we are 4 years later. We've overcome some incredible obstacles, and I think at the end of the day, we are going to get through whatever challenge we are faced with.
Yes, sir. We already went through a lot. And also 4 years is big, especially in crypto. Like being around for 4
a
years
century
is
here,
a
bro.
lot. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, appreciate everyone who joined as well. Appreciate everyone who has been with us for the ride since inception or since you joined us. So really appreciate you being here. Sondavol is in the chat for the 4th year anniversary as well. That's huge. And yet, time really flies, Ryan. I see you in the chat. Well, I think this is a good moment to close. Thanks, Michael, Brett, Brian, Dominic, Jose. It was a great conversation, and hope to have you on soon again. So, thanks, everyone. This was the Atlas Brew number 140, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, at the Econ Forum. All right.
And I'm sure Chris is probably going to tease out a little bit about that Atlas addendum, locker addendum. So you should join.
Okay.
Yeah.
Join.
Sheesh.
See you
Cool.
tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Y'all want me to start singing now?